press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
This is a News Laundry podcast, and you're listening to Highway on my podcast with Rocky, Mayur, and Abhinandan.
We're back.
We're hungry.
And we are on Highway on my podcast with Rocky, Mayur, and I am Abhinandan Sekhri. We are taking you across the country on highways. Since you can't go to the highway, we will bring the highway to you through this podcast. And this episode, the super efficient Mayur has told us the route we took when we went to Assam. In fact, we started from Kolkata, Shantiniketan, and then we went to Bokaghat, Sonitpur, Tezpur, Karupetia, Sonapur, Guwahati, and Nongpoh. Mayur, take a bow. I'm amazed that you could put this together because I don't even remember whether I was alive or dead when I did this schedule.
Okay, this is a good time to plug the books. Thanks to Highway on My Plate and Highway on My Plate 2. They're a great reference for all the places we ate at when we went on Highway on My Plate. And extra brownie points credits to Rocky, because there was one stage where I was grumbling about having to spend all this extra effort to write the book. And he said, later we'll have an easy resource that we'll be able to look up. So Baba Rocky, you looked into the future and you saw it. Well done.
Yes, I often look into the future, but I never realized that only after 6 podcasts, Nikku will get so used to us, Ghar ki murgi dal barabar, that he'll stop calling us the 2 biggest men in the food scene in India.
I actually thought of doing that, but I said it's getting repetitive. I was trying to think of something new. So I thought will.
But it's in the absence of something new. This is like a takiya kalam. Yeah? I like that line because it's true.
Then we shall stick to it. It's true. If you can find 2 men with the combined body weight to even bypass 1.5 of them, we can give you the title, but you will have to take it from the cold, dead hands of Rocky and Mayur. So, with the 2 biggest men in Indian food and travel, we will take you across Assam. We have one of my favorite meals, I don't know about Rocky and Mayur, some fantastic landscapes and dhabas that we stopped at, and one mistake that I made earlier, which I shall correct today. But before that, thank you all those of you who've written to us, who've told us what you like, what you'd like us to do, and who have shared your own food stories. Guys, the response is overwhelming. We are touched. And I'm sure with this community that we create, we will be able to get out there once this COVID is behind us and hit the highway again and meet many and several of you as we make our way across the country. So stay tuned for that. Check out our newsletter, which will tell you how to subscribe to as we go forward on this podcast. But Rocky, tell me, when we get to Assam, where do you take us first? And by the way, we are going to tell you the detailed experience of trying the spiciest mircha, kya bhi kehte hain?
Mirchi.
Pepper
of its time. Suna hai ab koi aur invent ho gayi hai. It was an experience.
No, it is. And just the state of Assam. Now, I want to tell you that I have a very, very old link with Assam. My grandfather spent most of his working life in Assam. He was in the Signals Regiment in the Indian Army. And from 1952 to almost 1967, he was up there in Assam and in Shillong. He used to spend the summers in Shillong, and then he would come down to Tezpur in Assam for the winters. And he traveled a lot in that area. So, I've grown up on old stories about Assam. And then just when I think of Assam, I think of Bhupen Hazarika's voice here. It is beautiful. It's gentle. It's, it just transports you to another time where the world wasn't as fast and sharp and snappy and cutting as it is today. It's just a gentler time, a gentler world, a slower watch. Time slows down when you come to Assam. Assam is just timeless. It's one of those beautiful places that if you haven't been to, you should really consider putting it on your travel agenda. It is truly a magnificent state. And that's the sort of frame of mind I'm in right now. So I'm slowing down.
And your dil is hum karrowing, I'm sure. But before, I throw to you, I just want to, remember this one thing, that when we were doing this, we were driving from Bengal into Assam. And my father, when I was a child, when I think I was between the ages of 4 and 6 or maybe 5 and 7, he was posted to Siliguri. I remember one evening when everybody was at the hotel, I just took the car and I went to the Bagdogra, I think not Bagdogra. I don't know. Basically, whatever was the cantonment at the time. And I went there and the barracks and everything was exactly the same. And it was just such a trip going back there because I remember, running around there as a child. But of course, everything around had changed, but the cantonment was the same. And that's what I love about army cantonments. They bloody remain the same no matter how many years go by. Even the jhula we used to jhulo on had not been changed. Clearly, the budgets are being cut and put elsewhere. If the jhula that I used when I was 6 was still there when I went there when I was like 40 or 39 years old.
Yes, and knowing you, Siliguri is in West Bengal, so you should be aware of that, right? Before you start talking
Yeah,
about
I know. I said that I missed it earlier. So Mayo, what are you going to feed us as we drive into Assam?
A different story than I was planning, because you said Bagdogra, and Bagdogra reminds me that whenever you fly into the airport there, they actually have the best food that we've eaten at an airport in India.
Yes, man.
Right?
How many times have you eaten there? In fact, we used to make sure we don't eat breakfast so that we could go to that airport and eat.
And why? Because it's run by the co-op here. All the people that work there are completely invested in it, and they take a lot of care, and that's great food here.
Yeah.
So that's a great example of like just taking ownership, and everybody serves it there with love. They're very happy to explain the dishes. They're proud of the food of their state. And I think as we go on our journey today, we're going to find that that's one thing that defines the people of Assam. They're really proud of their food. They're always like trying to figure out how to like put their little hooks and climb over the Great Wall of Bengal. Because a lot of people stop at Bengal. They don't realize that the food of Assam is just as powerful and just as complex and just as historical.
And before I forget, we also have to talk about the Kamakhya temple, man. I remember our trip. The Kamakhya temple was quite a trip itself. So, Rox, you want to start with food or travel?
Oh, no, the Kamakhya temple, now that you mentioned it here, I mean, it is an absolutely stunning little place. It has huge history and mythology connected to it. And as you drive into Guwahati, there's a big hill. And, it sort of dominates the entire cityscape. In fact, when you go up on your way to Kamakhya Devi Mandir, you'll be able to look out and see the whole city of Guwahati laid out before you. And it is just a beautiful temple. Of course, once you get there, it has a history of, animal and other things, sacrifice. I mean, human sacrifice was popular over there. Thankfully, it doesn't happen anymore. But there's a lot of animal sacrifice, so be prepared. For those of you who are faint of heart, remember that when you walk into the Kamakhya temple, and you must go there, you'll have things like birds and ducks and pigeons and small animals and even large animals like buffaloes that have been brought there for sacrifice. And it is quite a sight. And as you go into the temple, you go into the bottom, there is blood everywhere. So, that's something to keep in mind. These are all rituals. I'm not going to judge them and say if it's good or bad or whatever it is. But what I'm going to say is that be ready for it if you ever go there. And, it's part of mythology of a people who have been there. I mean, the Ahoms, the Ahom rulers ruled Assam for 600 years. So there's a lot of culture and a lot of tradition and a lot of history there. Take that as it is.
But when we went, Rox, I think it had just been post a sacrifice or a festival, probably because they were washing the blood, I remember. And this place which, fills up with blood and fluids around the temple, you could see, the coagulated blood and they were hosing it down. So it was a bit disturbing if you don't like that. But it's not like that all the time. I think they have particular times when they do the sacrifice, because I've been there once before and there was nothing. So I think it really depends on what time you get there. And interesting trivia, the first assistant director of Highway on My Plate for the first 2 episodes was a young boy named Kamakhya, who now is in Bombay, and he's made a film called Bhor. He's grown up to be a really talented writer and director, and he's gone on to make a movie. But his name was Kamakhya. Remember Kamakhya, guys?
Yeah, long hair. He'd put that little hairband into it.
Yeah. Wonderful lad. So
yeah, he's really grown up. Kamakhya was like 55 kilos when he worked with us. He is now 135 kilos. So,
so he's really grown.
His graph has even been sharper than mine.
He had good training.
But yeah, but the sacrifice happens every day. It happens early in the morning. So, you'll miss most of it if you go there during the day. But during festivals and on busy days, it carries on. But that's not why it's important. It's important because it's just a beautiful place and there's great viewpoint there. So if you stand there, you can actually look out and see all of Guwahati. And what a city it is here. I mean, are we in Guwahati now? Mayur, where are we? What are we talking about?
Yeah, we've landed in Guwahati. Let's talk about Guwahati.
Guwahati is paradise.
Yes, paradise. Let's start with paradise. It was my favorite meal until we went to this one particular place in Hyderabad. I've forgotten the name as usual, but I'm sure Rocky and me will remind me when we get to our Andhra episode. It had the first time, by the way, we've been to Guwahati several times, like many times. The first time we went there, they had this Assamese thali, which had the most amazing mutton curry. And it was in that, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, and I probably will be. It's not brass, right? But it's a yellow metal thali. And it has little katoris. And it has the most amazing, shocking white rice with this mutton curry. And they used to have this little shot of, I think it was amle ka juice. And that you took it like a shot. And I remember I asked for 2-3 shots. They said, "Ek thali ke sath ek hi milta hai. Since you're only having that and you don't seem to be having anything, we'll give you a few more." But it was one of my favorite meals. I always look back at what they did with the mustard, with their mutton curry. Like I said, I'm not much of a foodie, but that place, had me floored.
That thali was called the Parampara thali.
Right. And what are the veg like, man?
The veg was fantastic. First time I tried a pitika, which the Assamese do. You can do it with eggplant, you can do it with tomato, you can do it with, they do it with dried fish also. But the one I had was the potato one with the chilies and the mustard oil. Very sharp. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember the pitika.
Amla juice.
And they also had this one sabzi. I don't know what it was called. It was a mix between, I think, parmal and a loki. It was a veg thing. I really liked it. It was very beautifully spiced. Rocky, what did you think of the Paradise Thali, man? And were you sad when you went the second time they had discontinued the Amla shot?
No, I don't think they discontinued the Amla shot, because I went there the last time I went there was about 2 years ago, I think, when I was on my way to Kaziranga. And I go to Guwahati often. I mean, the last time I went there was February, which is like not even 2 months ago. I mean, just over 2 months ago. So I'm there quite often, and I didn't go to Paradise this time. But the last time I went, they gave me the shot of Amla soup. It was pretty fantastic. And the Parampara thali is brilliant, because, you can have like a mutton thali or a fish thali, and the fish is just the highlight of Assam. I mean, remember, Assam is the land of the Brahmaputra. This is a mighty, mighty river. It is huge. It's like the largest island on the Brahmaputra. The population of that is like 25,000 or something. It's a huge island. And this is a massive river. So when you go to Guwahati and you look by the river, you see this magnificent waterscape, and you'll see dolphins. I mean, every time we've gone there, we've seen dolphins just outside Guwahati. So it has been truly a pleasure to go to Guwahati every time. So we had that, but yeah, fish is everywhere in Assam. Fish is the staple. There are 100 rivers, there's 1,000 tributaries, there's just water everywhere. And in fact, this is what we were discussing last time. You remember, Niku, we were talking about how there's a little pond in front of each and every single home, which is full of fish, it's full of ducks, and is used to, supply drinking water, wash the pots and pans, washing water. Each home used to be completely independent. And the saddest part now, and in the last 20 years, I think Assam has changed more than any other state as far as I'm concerned, because only as recently as the last 20 years, the water pipelines have reached everywhere, and these little ponds are just drying up. I mean, if you go there now, none of them have this water.
In fact, we had one really fun sequence of shooting. We were this one particular dhaba, and most of the dhabas or the restaurants, not restaurants, but the dhabas or the shacks are on stilts over there, because during the monsoon, the Brahmaputra and whatever other rivers, they really swell up. So, all these places are on these 8, 10 to 15, 20 feet high stilts, which makes it look really beautiful. In fact, those of you who will subscribe to the newsletter, you'll see the photographs of us on stilts. And Rocky and Noor, I remember we did a sequence. You guys go back and try fishing in one of these big ponds. And I think one of you almost fell in. Or did I fall in? Someone was falling in.
No, it was me. I was sitting down by the edge of the pond trying to catch fish.
Yeah.
And the pond gave way and I almost landed face first into the water. But I couldn't catch a fish, so we had to. But I did manage to catch a duck after that. So we had a duck curry.
Yes, we did. In fact, we've had
which is again popular, huh? It's the second most popular bird, the third most popular bird in Assam. Mayur, you want to tell us what's the most popular bird in Assam?
Chicken.
Pigeon,
no,
I think. There was pigeon curry everywhere, right? Pigeon curry.
Paro monkey.
Pigeon, yeah, pigeon curry. They call it pigeon curry, and I was wondering what pigeon is, and I was like, what is pigeon? It doesn't really sound like anything I ever had before until I realized it's pigeon. So that was a revelation for the first time. But yeah, pigeons are really popular in Assam. In fact, we should invite them to our cities here. We should have more Assamese in our cities, because the number of pigeons here is just ridiculous.
I don't think it's the same pigeon they eat, or maybe it is, I don't know. But it has very little meat, if you're used to a bird like chicken or duck. But Rocky was talking about the Brahmaputra. We did a sequence on the banks of the Brahmaputra where I guess, during the immersion, all the idols that were immersed had been washed ashore and they were, lying there rotting or whatever it is. And the Gangetic dolphin is called the soos, and it just like comes up, broop, broop, and you keep seeing it, come up and down. And apparently, during the good old days, you could see it even till Varanasi, right? Now you don't, of course, because of pollution.
Yeah, you can see it everywhere. And the stunning part is that the angelic dolphin is blind because it lives in these really muddy waters. So it's basically working on like sonar, and it's sort of zapping and calling inside. But you see them everywhere. You see them breaking water. Of course, like all mammals, they need to breathe. So they need to come out of the water to be able to breathe. But Guwahati is a magnificent river, and now you guys may not know this, but they have a Guwahati river trip now. You can stay on boat and go upriver and check it out. And they have a beautiful statue of Lachit Borphukan. And he's like the Assamese hero, the one who sort of fought and held off the Mughals as they wanted to come into Assam. So Assamese have always been, great warriors, very strong tribes, and their numbers, and they fought really well. And of course, he fought really bravely against the Mughals. I think he was around in like the 1630s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, something like that. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like 1671 or 16, something like that, where he fought the Mughals.
And Mayo, that trip when we did Paradise, we ate at two other which specialize in tribal food. And they did very interesting things with the bamboo and keep it clean. Can you tell us? There was a bamboo achar. There was like 100 things with bamboo and bamboo derivatives. In fact, even the entire decor was done with bamboo and bamboo leaves and jute and stuff.
It was called Gam's Delicacy Restaurant.
Right.
And they had like, Assam is very democratic, eh? They'll eat ducks, they'll eat fish, they'll eat chicken, they'll eat pigeon. They've got curries for everything. And this place, if you remember, they were using bamboo a lot. They had that fish that they smoked inside the bamboo. They cooked it and smoked it inside the bamboo. And then they pulped it and made a paste with green chili and I think the sharp tomatoes. And then they made a little sauce out of it at one end. And they were doing rice also steamed in bamboo.
Yeah, in fact, in bamboo, they make like these very interesting vessels with bamboo and they served us in that. I'm sure they have bamboo instruments also.
Yeah, but all the fish over there, like I said, fish is staple with every meal. You'll get it in some form or the other. So you have this little fish, which I think they used to call it puri mas. Puri mas is like a small fish which they fry up with chilies, etc., and they serve it. But even if you don't have fish or, the fish or tenga, so they have a really sour, or is like an elephant apple, which is found in the forest. It's a large, strong, sort of hard, green colored fruit that looks like an apple. But of course, it's 4 times the size of an apple. And elephants love to eat it, and it's really sour, and they use it to make fish curry, which is delightful. It's a fabulous flavor, and in case they don't have fish, or they don't have puri mas, or they don't have the big fish which they make, or tenga, then they use really small fish which they pound into chutneys along with their chilies, which are called jolokia. So, whatever the name of the chili comes first before jolokia. So the ghost pepper is called the bhoot jolokia. For example, if you like the Kashmiri mirch, it'll be called the Kashmiri jolokia, though it has a different name in Assam. So chili and fish, 2 things that will go with every meal in some form or the other in Assam. Delightful. And rice, of course.
Yeah, the fermented, and then of course their khar. Oh, incidentally, I was reading somewhere that the otenga, if you karate chop it or actually cut it open, then inside it has this thing that looks even more in the shape of an apple, and they just slice bits of that and then they cook it. And that's what gives the sour taste. So you have to get through the hard outer.
Yeah, it's like a gutli inside.
Now, as we will head out of Guwahati, I would just like to urge the listeners that in case you want to subscribe to the newsletter where you will get some trivia and photographs and visual references to all that we speak about, you can click on the link, which is at the bottom of the podcast page on newslaundry.com where this podcast is. You'll see a link there. It opens a form. Or you can mail us at homp2020@gmail.com, HOMP2020@gmail.com, and we'll mail you back that link and you can fill in your details and you will be subscribed to our newsletter. So do subscribe, and whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, please give us a high rating or a favorable review. It makes the likelihood of other people finding us that much higher. And many of you have already done that because in just our 3rd or 4th episode, Highway on My Podcast is the number 3 podcast across all categories. By the way, the only ones below us, there's the TED podcast above us, and I think the BBC or the CNN podcast below us. So thank you so much. Let's make it the top 3 podcasts across all podcast platforms and not just iTunes. So whatever podcast platform you're on, please give us a high rating or a favorable review. It really helps us. And let's make this community of Highway on My Podcasters, because someone said don't use hompers. I said Highway on My Podcasters larger. So we will do that. So do subscribe and do give us a high rating. Guys, be ready with your Tezpur stories, because that is Tezpur will be special for me for a variety of reasons. I have a couple of emails I'd just like to go through. This one is from Aisha. She says, Dear Team Homp, writing in to say a massive thank you for these episodes. Homp was one of the few TV shows that my entire family used to sit down to watch together without any complaint. And we all loved it. Growing up in a half Bengali household in Maharashtra, food has always been a huge part of my life. I live in France now. And every time I'm planning a trip to Pune, the first discussion my mother and I have is about what food we're going to eat before I've even booked my tickets. Here's the picture of the first thing I ate when I visited home. She's given us pictures of the Vada Pav from Sri Krishna Vada Pav off the Mumbai-Pune Expressway.
Nice.
When all of this is over and you find yourselves hopefully back in Pune, please check out Surve's Pure Non-Veg restaurant. The food there is incredible and you will not be disappointed. Mutton that falls off the bone, tambda rasa that you could drink by the liter, mind-bogglingly tasty rice. Stay safe, stay happy, and I cannot wait to see what you guys make next, Aisha. Thank you, Aisha. We can't wait what we all make next. Whatever we do next, we will do together. So thank you for writing in.
Yeah, thanks. Aisha, really appreciate it. You know, this is really sort of motivates us and gives us a lot of pep when we hear your responses. You guys send in your mails, send in your suggestions, recommendations. I mean, this is, you know, we always looked at our show and now even at our podcast as being our podcast and our show. It doesn't really belong to us. It belongs to the highways of India, the food of India, the traveling around India. So it's just a community that just loves to talk about food and travel and the beautiful places of India. So jump right in. You know, you don't need to be invited. You don't need to be told. You don't need to be welcomed. It's as much yours as it is ours. Of course, if you're a vegetarian like Mayur, then it's less yours because so much of it is restricted. But it's still yours.
I have a funny France story. So the two biggest men in Indian food and travel, their book won an award in France and they had to fly down to France to receive the award. And they came back learning French. Voulez-vous, parlez-vous, oui, fancy, ho gaya bada France, सीख गया, gentleman.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah. And of course, they told us, they said, in case you win, you have to come on stage wearing a formal, a tuxedo or a formal suit. And without that, we won't be able to let you come onto the stage. And we were like, listen, boss, we are from India. We wear clothes that we were wearing 3,000 years ago while you guys are roaming around in furs and animal skins. So don't tell us what to wear. We will wear our Indian traditional outfits. So Mayur and I got new pajama kurtas, really smart ones stitched for that. And of course, luckily our book won, and we went on stage to collect it in our Indian clothes. And it was such a moment of pride.
You have photographs of that?
Yeah, we've got lots of photographs of that.
We will put those in the newsletter. You can check out the two gentlemen looking a little less scruffy than they usually do.
Yeah, and this is the world.
Don't fall for that. There's a photograph of the two of us. One has a knife, the other has a gamcha wrapped around his head. When we went there, all the other chefs were presenting their fancy meals. We made them a really nice bhel puri and gave them barfi, kaju barfis, and Rocky made malai chingudi. So we exported as much of our culture, and we did it all not in French.
No, we didn't do it in French. And in fact, this is what I just want to tell you guys. It was a very proud moment for us because out of 173 countries, with authors of food books from 173 countries, including people like Mayur, any famous names that you can think of in food? Anthony Bourdain was somewhere there. There was a whole lot of people with a whole lot of books, and we won. So India was first, and our book was first. So it was just fantastic to be on that stage with 173 countries competing for the prize. And of course, the title is Best in the World. So if you buy a book one, it'll have the title Best in the World on it. And in fact, even the second one won again in a couple of years in China, but we're too modest to keep talking about that. So just know that we're like really cool.
So then,
really cool.
So we went to Tezpur, and in Tezpur we tried the hottest pepper in the world. But Tezpur is special for me because most of the routes we did over here, there aren't many hotels, especially when you go from here. We drove up to Arunachal, then we went further up, and there was this one hotel. It wasn't too fancy, but I really liked it because they had that pastry shop niche where we used to get pastry at night, tuck it before we went to sleep. That was a fantastic hotel. So Tezpur has some wonderful memories. And of course, we went to Kaziranga and you see the pictures of this strange animal we saw, which has the head of a buffalo skull and the body of Rocky. So you can check that out in the photographs that I sent you. But Tezpur is also home, well, not Tezpur, but Assam is home to what at that time was the spiciest chili in the world called the Bhoot Jolokia. And Mayur, tell us what are Scoville units it's measured, whatever is the metric. How does it work?
Technical, fantastic. Okay.
By the way, Mayur is a postgraduate or graduate in zoology or botany or flowerology or something like that, by the way.
Zoology, I don't know about flowerology. But when you say how spicy is a chili, the spice in a chili is measured with something called capsaicin. So if you have pure capsaicin, it's 16 million units on what is called a Scoville unit, named after this guy. And then the lower your spice unit, the less spicy it is. So your normal green chili will be about 25 to 30,000 Scoville units. The Bhut Jolokia is 1,410,000 Scoville units, which means you bite it, as we will talk about somebody who did. It basically is like taking a lighter or a blowtorch and sticking it in your mouth and setting it on fire.
Although that's not how it feels. I'm sure Rocky will tell you, and I have photographs of me trying it also after that. But one Bhut Jolokia, it's like this round anda shape, but it's not as big as an anda. One of those is used to cook a full buffalo. So you can imagine how much spice quantity it has.
No, it is. In fact, Bhut Jolokia is not really eaten as a chili. It's usually dipped in oil or in salt water in brine, and it's made like a pickle, and then a drop of oil is added to your food to give it fire. And it is an incredibly fiery chili. I mean, so let's take your normal Tabasco or capsico sauce. That would have a Scoville rating of about, I'd say, 10 to 20,000. Between 8 and 20,000 at the most. If a really sharp chili, you'd get a really sharp chili like a bird's eye chili, I think it would be somewhere around 200, 250,000. But this one has a Scoville rating of 1,040,000. And when we went there, it was the spiciest chili known to man. So you can just imagine 1,040,000, the rating on the Scoville rating. It is a killer, and I'll tell you how cool it is, because we went down to the market in Tezpur, and we were walking around, and there were hundreds of young men, shopping or buying things or hanging around like they do in markets. And we collected 30, 40 college-age boys, and we said, all right, here's 1,000 rupees for anyone who'll eat this one chili. And not a single guy came forth. You remember that, guys?
Yes, but I'm glad they didn't, because when we got back to the hotel, we were told that if you have a full one, it could even kill you. So
yeah. And sadly, it was told to us after I ate it.
Yes.
So that thing didn't work after all the promises they made. All that planning gone to waste.
So you'll see in the picture they sent you, we had a sequence where Rocky tried the Bhut Jolokia. And Rocky will tell you his experience and I'll tell you mine.
No, of course, we were very careful. We took really good precautions. So I told these guys, I said, get me like a glass of water and get me a katori of dahi and maybe some honey. So they lined up the good stuff. So we had water. Next to it, we had honey. Next to it, we had yogurt. Next to it, we had a pineapple pastry. Next to it, we had a fire extinguisher. Next to it, we had some rice. And I was like, I understand.
We had a rope also.
What was the theory of the rope? What was the rope there for?
That we'll just strangle you if you don't die.
They've tried many times, but like Lachit Borphukan, they have been unable to reach me and kill me. Yeah. So I think, let me tell you my experience with it. Now, this is a chili that very few people eat. And in fact, a lot of people have been watching this Bhut Jolokia eating competition. Now, remember, it is still one of the spiciest naturally growing chilies of the world. There are many others now which are spicier than the Bhut Jolokia. There's the Muruga Scorpion. Mayur, any other ones that you can think of? There's the Dragon's
Breath, Carolina Reaper, Moruga Scorpion, Trinidad Scorpion. They're all now. It's like an art and science all mixed. People are
the hybrid that's been created, just like many patty varieties are created.
The hybrids created. So the Bhut Jolokia, and the reason why it's called the Bhut Jolokia is because traditionally they made a little slit in it and put it in a lota of water in the morning. And then in the evening, they sprinkled that water all over the house, and all the ghosts in the house would run away because it was so spicy. So it was called the Bhut Jolokia, that would get rid of all the ghosts in your house. And, eating one is not a joke. I mean, this is not a chili that you can pass off like your neighborhood Golgappe wala, which I think wouldn't exceed more than 200,000 on the Scoville rating. So I took the first bite, and for 3 or 4 seconds, I thought I was going to die. And then suddenly it sort of, my body recovered, and I was like, okay, maybe I can do this. And then about 20 seconds, so I chewed it and I swallowed it. Then I took a second bite, and by this time I'd got through about 70% of the chili I had bitten off. And then I chewed it, seeds and all, and I swallowed it. And before I could take a third bite, the second bite, the residue of that, the capsaicin burned through the mucosa of my mouth there. And I thought my face is going to explode. I mean, I have never felt anything like it in my life. I mean, this was ridiculous. I couldn't even imagine taking the third bite. I mean, I ate 70% of that chili, and the only reason I could swallow it is because as soon as it hit my mouth, it had burnt off all my taste buds and nerve endings that sent signals to the brain that says, "Don't eat it, are you mad?" And after it just went through right through my mouth, that's when I realized I was going to die.
So yeah, it's
Man,
exactly like,
I have never felt so uncomfortable.
so it's exactly like Rocky said. The only thing is that it hits you like a few seconds later, because because after that, when I tried, I took a little, bit and I chewed it. For the first few seconds, it's like, okay, I can feel a slight tingling, but it's not much. But then when you swallow it, after about 5 to 7 seconds is when suddenly your mouth catches fire and you can feel the fire travel downwards as you've eaten it. And then, my God, as I bloody gulped water and whatnot. But the same jolokia is called a Naga chili when you go to Nagaland. We did it there. But this entire region does amazing things with the chili. When we came back, the car was smelling of all sorts of oils because I know I had picked up about 5 bottles of different mirchi ka achar. So they have these little chilies, these bhut jolokia ka achar. They have many with chilies ka achar. And that kept me going for, I think, another 6-8 months after every lunch. With every lunch, I'd have those chilies. So that was our Tezpur experience. And then to Kaziranga.
And Tezpur. Yeah, Tezpur is a really incredible place here. Let me tell you a little more about it, which we didn't cover on the show. When you land in Guwahati, and Guwahati is the gateway to the Seven Sisters, the states there, which is why we kept landing in Guwahati. Every time we had to drive out either to Nagaland or to Manipur or to Arunachal, Guwahati is the place that you usually would land in those days. That was the last airport that really had regular flights, commercial flights. So we landed in Guwahati. Guwahati is south of the Brahmaputra. So is Kaziranga.
Rocky, the first time we drove all the way there. The next few times for Assam Valley School, we flew. The first time from Delhi to Kolkata, Kolkata to Guwahati, right?
Yeah. Either way, I mean, Guwahati is south of the Brahmaputra, and then if you drive to Kaziranga all along the road, you're always on the south of the river. Tezpur, however, is on the north of the river, so you have to cross the river. And there are 2 bridges. One is just short of Guwahati, and then another one is about 150, 170 kilometers down the road. So there aren't too many options to cross the Brahmaputra, which is a magnificent river. But if you cross over and you go to Tezpur, a little north of Tezpur, I think about 30 kilometers from Tezpur, is a beautiful national park called Nameri. And Nameri is one of my favorite parks because it has the Jia Bhoroli river that sort of comes in and joins, which is one of the tributaries of the Brahmaputra. It joins up the Brahmaputra ahead of Tezpur. But the Jia Bhoroli has one of the most unique ways to witness wildlife, the safari. It's a rafting safari. The river is really shallow at points. The fresh water is water coming off the Himalayas, which is melting from the glaciers and coming down. And the Jia Bhoroli is completely in the jungle in the Nameri National Park. It is complete forest on both sides. And as you drive in, you'll get some magnificent birds that you can see there. If you're a birding enthusiast, it is one of those places where you can get great shots of the merganser. You can see giant flocks of huge flocks of giant cormorants. You'll see the Indian thickney. You'll see the great thickney. You'll see small pratten cole. You'll see river terns. All kinds of beautiful, beautiful birds. And of course, Nameri is the best place in the world to see the state bird of Assam, which is a really, really rare bird. It's called the white-winged wood duck. And it's a wood duck because it lives in the woods, in the forest. And to go there and to see it is just a treat because you have to go into these little ponds which are covered with sort of green scum right in the middle of forests. And it's really, really shy. So you have to be very careful. It's very adventurous. So if you get a chance, get down there and see it. It's a beautiful state and it could do with more tourism and, it's some magnificent things to see.
Man, now I want to go. As soon as lockdown's over, I want to go there. And I've been there a few times. And now in Tezpur, you guys are forgetting that evening after that. That was the evening where our camera guy Ajay had just had his little daughter.
Yes, we
and then
celebrated.
we all sat down.
Right. We celebrated.
The bar with, and Baba Deep was like, Ajay sir, मैं आपको कविता सुनाता हूँ.
कविता सुनाता हूँ. एक छोटी सी नन्ही सी चिड़िया.
But you have to introduce Baba Deep, otherwise it doesn't make any sense to anyone. It's really funny for us. But Baba Deep was our camera and audio assistant, and he was from Himachal Pradesh, and he had the most Punjabi Himachali accent that you can ever imagine. He was about a 45-kilo, really quiet, silent, gentle man until he drank. And when he drank, he became a poet from hell.
Yeah, point from him. But he was an amazing guy. So, we celebrated Ajay while we were out there, his daughter's arrival. And we had a drink, and Baba Deep gave us Gyan of the world from the hills of Himachal. But other than, how much wood would a wood duck duck if wood duck could duck wood? Uh, Another fantastic shoot that we all did together was in the Assam Valley School, which, again, knowing my sense of direction, I may have got wrong. But I think we went via Tezpur only. It's like, I think, an hour and a half from Tezpur, if I'm not wrong. Was that the route we took, Rocky?
Yeah. It's not too far from Tezpur, but it's on the north of the river.
So it's a beautiful school. By the way, if you guys are looking for a boarding school, we did an entire series on boarding schools around the country. I loved it. I think if you can grow up with that kind of a campus, it has these huge fields. You can imagine you're surrounded by tea gardens. You're in Assam. The campus is mind blowing. It is beautiful. It is idyllic. And the good thing is that your children will be safe, because as opposed to boarding schools that, I've been in and many of my friends have been in, you could get into trouble because you scale the wall and you go busting bounds, and you could get into trouble in the city, and then you could get into shit. Here, no students will break bounds, because all around the schools, there are these army posts because of, the problem in Assam, at least it was at that time. There are signs that you will be shot if you're trespassing. All such. So as opposed to my school, if you were caught busting bounds, which was the slang for breaking the school boundary, your punishment was a yellow card. Here it could be a bullet. So no one busts bounds. Everyone stays in school. But it's the most
it is
an amazing
it is a really, really stunning school. I mean, not just the school campus, which is completely beautiful, and it's huge. It's like it's like a university campus, but all around it are these magnificent tea gardens with these army guys with their guns, keeping an eye on everything. So the security is absolute. But once you get in, you're in a little paradise. I mean, it's a magnificently run school, really beautifully built. Some great kids from all over, and
I was so impressed.
Yeah, about 3 or 4 months ago, I spoke to a young lady who called me to interview me for some magazine, and she reminded me that she is from the Assam Valley School, and that she was there when we were shooting there. So it was such a pleasure to talk to her, and all the kids there. I remember them being so articulate and confident and wonderful.
And they were so good at music. Remember, they sang for us. They had this little band. They were damn good. In fact, music is an integral part of that entire part of the country, man. Bengal eastward, you get like music everywhere. Kyumeo. They had a great canteen also, no?
I can't remember the canteen at all. Is that strange or what?
It's
I
very
remember
strange
hanging out in the courtyard with all the kids, and they were singing.
Yes.
I don't remember anything about their food.
Okay. Yes.
Well, we ordered a whole bunch of food, and we went to the canteen, which was pretty quiet at that time, and they put out a table for us into the lawn outside.
Yes.
And there were 30, 40 kids around us, and we had momos, and we had sandwiches and tea, and we all sat there and chatted, and it was really nice. That was the only free time we had to chat with all the kids, and we made the most of it. I think we bought sandwiches and momos for everyone.
Yes, we did. It was good fun. Then, of
Thank
course,
you, director, for paying for all these things.
yeah, anything for kids, man. They were so much fun, yeah. But then we went to Kaziranga National Park. We did a great sequence there. You'll see the photographs, which will be part of the newsletter. Then, I'd like to go into some of the other Sonitpur, the Samora Idis Dhaba.
Yeah,
Do tell us about
Samaru,
that.
yeah.
But I have a few emails with some questions.
Yeah.
So this is from Kolkata. Our lovely viewer has written saying, what is Rocky's real name?
So my real and full name is Sandeep Singh Hundal. But I dropped Hundal when I was about 16 years old because I became an atheist, and I didn't want to carry a name that signified who I was and where I came from and what my caste is and all that stuff. So I just kept Sandeep Singh, which would sort of identify me as an Indian, a lion of an Indian. It could be any state, could be UP or Bihar or Punjab or Himachal or Rajasthan or Haryana or anything. And of course, nobody really knew me by that name. Even in my school, everybody used to call me Rocky because that was my original name that my father gave me. My father was, he was fond of boxing, and Rocky Marciano is the only undefeated heavyweight champion of the world. So my father called me Rocky after Rocky Marciano. And then when I had to get into school in Delhi, they were like, what sort of name is Rocky Singh? We can't write that. So give us another name. And my mother, of course, in all her patience and wisdom, looked at the register and saw Sandeep was quite a popular name. So she called me Sandeep. And I was one of 7 Sandeeps. And if I remember, in my class, there was Sandeep Arora, Sandeep Berry, Sandeep Chadda, Sandeep Bhatia, Sandeep Buraria, Sandeep Kunte, and me, Sandeep Singh.
So basically, your mother was looking out for you because she knew you'd always get into trouble. At the moment someone said, "Hey, kinne kitta?" Sandeep ne. So there was a chance that you could get lost and you would not be identified. It was a long-term thinking, beta Rocky. Tu samjhta nahi, yaar, tu samjhta nahi.
Era? Very clever, very clever. Only unfortunately, nobody knew my name was Sandeep. Everybody's always called me Rocky. So that's my story.
Okay, the second question is, why is it that whenever Rocky cracked a silly joke on the show, it was Mayur who would get embarrassed? Were the crew embarrassed as well? Well, I wasn't. I was more than happy with bad jokes. I think Mayur ka taste.
I don't know. Mayur was never embarrassed. Mayur, were you ever embarrassed?
I'm just embarrassed by him. 44 years I've been embarrassed by him, trying to run away. You never know when he's going to break out in dance. When he was younger, it was about taking his clothes off at every given possible chance in public. Not all of them, but as many as he could get away with without being arrested.
Without being arrested.
Yeah.
And then third question is,
Yeah, I avoided that most of the time. But yeah, I did. I used to take my clothes off a lot when I was young, and now I'm just a terrible singer and a terrible dancer. But I enjoy singing and dancing, so I sing and dance all the time. Yeah, क्योंकि
Oh, I
गाना
thought he was going to say,
आए
you
या
like singing
ना
or dancing in one
आए,
together.
गाना चाहिए, ठंडे ठंडे पानी से नहाना चाहिए.
It's great music as long as he keeps his clothes on.
Okay. What's with the red cap that I've seen Niku wearing many times in the photos and a few shots of form? Well, I had 2 red caps. One had been given to us by the Tourism Department of Singapore. So it carried on, and the other was a Divas cap. I used to have longish hair. I still do, but that time they were much longer. So combing it on a daily basis when you're on the road was kind of impossible. So I would wear a cap all the time. And how many people in the crew used to travel with Rocky and Mayur? There was a total of 10 of us, sometimes
Correct.
10, sometimes 9. And for a couple of schedules, for I think the Vital Stats, we had 12 people because we had a production assistant and an AD separate. We had a larger crew for Vital Stats, but it could be between 9 and 12 depending on which show.
Yeah,
You must have decided to spoil us for a couple of episodes.
No, yeah,
12
they
people.
had to take very detailed notes about the stats. What all are the stats? Where is the graphic going to be? So we had to have a separate person of production, a separate one for Vital Stats only.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people ask me, they were like, so what happens to all the food? You guys order so much food. So initially, when we used to land up, Mayur and I used to order food and eat it, then order it again and shoot with it. And then after that, when the crew used to sit down to eat, we would eat with them as well. But then we sort of stopped doing that. And then we turned into, we would order the food, it would be on the table, we would eat a little bit. And then when it finished, the whole crew would attack it like demons from hell. So, so no food was ever wasted on Highway on My Plate, not a scrap. In fact, we were always short on food, which we then ordered later and ate after the shot. Yeah. So,
But Rocky, I was seeing some of the old photographs because I was picking out photographs for the newsletter. And in fact, at some point, we'll make even more robust newsletters because there's some 5,000-6,000 photographs. I can go through all. The weight difference in both of you from the first schedule to the last is bloody insane, man. It's ridiculous what this show did to you, yeah.
Oh, God. And my journey is smaller, but I went from 78 kilos when we started to 104 at the heaviest, back to like 90 and trying to stay there in life. So I don't even want to do the calculation of how many kilos that was gained and lost. Rocky, I know, has calculated his. I bet he has.
yeah, I put on 245 kilos with Highway on My Plate. And I have lost 210 kilos while trying to be on a diet.
So you mean that's a yo-yo? Those are the amount of kilos you put on, lost,
Yeah,
put on, lost.
so I was 90 kilos when we started the show. I was lean, but I was big. So I was 90 kilos, lean 90 kilos. Then I went to 105. Then I dropped down to 92. Then I went to 110. Then I dropped down to 94. Then I went to 115. I dropped down to 92 again. So my gain loss. I've totally put on 245 and lost 210. Now I'm 125 kilos, which is 35 kilos more than what I was. So I have put on 35 kilos of weight, which is a lot of good food. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Okay. I won't tell you how much I put on loss because it's not much. Maybe
It's not.
2-3 kilos.
It depends on if you're wearing your shoes or not. If you're wearing your shoes, you put on 1.5 kilos. If you're not, then you haven't put on any weight.
That I would
If you take a walk in the rain, maybe another ½ kilo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one last email before we get into the McWoodland Dhaba and Chola Bhaturas and Nongpo and stuff. This is Hi Rocky, Mayur, Abhinan, Prashant. I'm a big fan of Homp. It's such a refreshing experience. Every time a new podcast comes up for a particular state, conversations about good food, humor, travel memories with good friends is a thing that we all need in these times. Really look forward to more journeys once we're out of this. Stay rocking, Deepveer. Deepveer, Veera, tu 10 kithe jana hai, tu bhi saath chaliyo.
That's the plan, guys. The plan is to get a group of people together who are really interested in the show and get that group together and then do some crowdfunding for the show itself and then get the show back on the road and shoot it. I mean, whatever name we're going to shoot it under. Of
We
course,
call it Rocky and Mayur Ride again.
Rocky and Mayur Ride Again. Yeah, I like the sound of that.
I think that'll be a good
And
title.
then it'll be called Rumra. Rocky Mayur Ride Again. RMRA. Rumra.
Rumra, which is more decent sounding than Homp. Now, Mayur, bata yaar, what is a date palm, jaggery, gurkhas, and you listed some very exotic things that I don't even remember. Was I there when all this was eaten?
Yes.
Of course.
We were in this place called Kharupetia, and we were right near the bus station, and we stopped at this place, and there they were making these rasgullas, the larger ones, and then dipping them in date palm jaggery, deep, thick, caramelly, tasty stuff. I mean, they claim they've been making them long before the rasgullas were thought of, but we're not going to get into that controversy.
Right.
And in fact, we tried these same gurkhas at a place called Lakshmi Cabin in Guwahati also, along with like the sweet pitikas, because they love their sweet along with everything else.
Yeah, so the gurkha, for all of you who don't know what the gurkha is, gur is like gur, what we call gur or jaggery. And the gurkha is like a rasgulla. It's in fact exactly like a rasgulla. It can be really light and fluffy, or it can be a slightly heavier like the rasgulla is all over the country. And it's got jaggery in it, so it's brown in color. And it is less sweet because it doesn't have that really cloying sweetness of the clear sugar that they use in rasgulla. So it is really nice. I mean, you can easily have like 10. If you're a guy who has like 2 rasgullas, or if you're a guy or girl who have like 1 or 2 rasgullas and that's it, you can have at least 6 of these because they're just tastier somehow.
What's the other stuff? The wood dhaba, chola bhaturas. By the way, was this the place where for a while there was this group with flags? They had blocked the road, and then we had to reason with them and get past the road. And because I have photographs of me holding this bamboo thing and drinking.
No, that was Bengal again when we were on our way to Darjeeling. So that was different.
Okay, that was different. Sorry. Go ahead.
Cholbena was our war cry.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No, this place was different. And this Kharupetia place was, when we stepped out, there was a panwala guy. And he was doing all these fancy things. He was doing different shapes with pan and stuff. I think we shot that also.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Flowers and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And then he had that pita also. We had the pita over there. You remember the pita? It's like, that rice flour sort of pancake, which has spices inside. It looks like a small dosa. The patashe ka pita we had, which had like a sweet kheer kind of rice and milk in it. And there were like lots of different kinds of pitas.
Correct.
So that was our meandering way through Assam. And like I said, we've been there several times. Guys, just be ready with your concluding stories. And I just have a few mails that I want to take care of before that. This is from Hey Abhinandan, Prashant, Rocky and Mayur. This is from Karthik. Just made some kadai chicken and garlic naan at home, along with some coriander chutney and sirke wala pyaz. Enjoying it. Hope you guys are well fed too during these uncertain times. Miss Delhi food because now I live in Bangalore. I remember that one Homp episode of Odisha where Rocky and Mayur went to the roadside eatery, and the 2 brothers who ran it were named Una and Tuna, and they had a Luna scooter, and Rocky was like, Una Tuna ki Luna. Yeah, that sounds like a Rocky joke. That completely cracked me up. These sort of quick humor and also the great places you showed in your show made it so great and different. Homp till date is my favorite food show. Look forward to having you guys get on the road with yet another series. Thanks, Karthik. Thanks for your support. Hopefully that will happen soon as all this depressing shit of lockdowns is behind us. And Jamini has sent us a 10-minute documentary on Parsi food that she made in Calcutta. Wow, Jamini,
Wow.
That was fantastic. The link is below if you go to the newslaundry.com podcast, Highway on My podcast page. We'll put the link there. So Jamini, other people can also see this. Sorry, not Jamini, my bad. Jaimin Rajni. Jaimin, people can see your documentary. The link is on this episode's page on newslaundry.com. So do check it out. And finally, Karthik says, Team Homp, you guys could have discussed states in the podcast in the order in which you traveled them. Chronology to samajhiye. Sarkar, hum chronology samajh gaye. But the problem is, we have done such a mishmash. We've been to some places twice, then we've cut through them. Like we've done Delhi to Kanyakumari along the east coast, then the west coast. Then we've done coast to coast separately from Kutch to the Sundarbans. Then we've done Delhi to Assam and beyond by road. Then we've flown.
And more importantly, everybody knows what they want. They don't know what they need. So if we start shooting in Delhi and then tell you all about Rajasthan for in one podcast, the next podcast we talk about Haryana, and then in the next podcast we talk about Gujarat and then Maharashtra, the food doesn't change that much from bordering state to bordering state. So you'd get bored of the way it's going here. In fact, we used to be hard pressed even on the show to show you guys something new and different in every episode. Now people tell us, why did you show us? Like, for example, in Ludhiana, there's a place called Aman Chicken and there's a place called Bawa Chicken. And they were like, why did you show us like all the 4 best places in Ludhiana? Because if you show you like 2 episodes of nothing but chicken, you'd get bored and we would get bored presenting it. So we have to bring variety. So this is what we are doing. With every podcast, we take you to a different corner of the country, completely different flavor, completely different stories, completely different feel to the whole thing. And that's why you enjoy the show. See, that's what you need. That's why you need us to do it.
The chaos and confusion of not knowing where you're going to land up next week in this country while still sitting at home. It could be Kerala, it could be Andhra Pradesh, it could be Assam. There's fun in the madness and not knowing.
And Prithvi says, hi, Niku, Rox and Mayo. Have always been a huge fan of Hom. Used to jam on the show and now the podcast makes me nostalgic. Luckily, we have lots of time due to the lockdown. So binging the podcast was not a big deal. Really enjoyed all of them. Can't wait for more. Thanks, Prithvi.
Lovely. Prithvi, you mean the world to us.
And finally, Saurav says, thank you for the podcast. I'm one of your early loyal viewers, often ridiculed at home for watching another Hom episode for the umpteenth time. In the clutter of so many food and travel programs, I believe Hom has the chops to recreate the stickiness and add to the legions of fans and bring down the average age of that coterie. Hats off to Mayur that he dug his heels in maintaining his vegetarian lineage, having spent so much time with one of the most celebrated carnivores of our time. And gents, you in a nano was a bit too much. Yeah, the Coast to Coast series, the Scorpio in your Chandigarh episode probably is more like it.
Yeah, but the nano, you have no idea what kind of troubles the nano threw up. Or in fact, even a Santro, because, I had a Santro like 25 years ago. And Mayur still has his dad's old Santro, which is, for some reason, his dad won't sell and Mayur won't encourage him to. But when we sit in the front seat together, it is ridiculous because our shoulders are like shoving each other out of the car. So, if you open the door, one of us would fall out. That's how tiny the space is. So the Santro was too much fun because we kept pushing each other out of the way.
Santro, nano.
Nano, you bol raha hu, I'm saying nano and also the Santro. But the Nano was a lot of fun.
What's wrong with mentioning 2 car companies? Maybe the next one will be sponsored by Samsung.
Who knows?
Sorry, by Hyundai Santro.
So the Santro is small, but the Nano is even smaller. So you can just imagine what happened to us inside that Nano. We were beating the living daylights out of each other after every shot because we were all over each other. And that is quite a gross.
We did some great journeys on that though, and the coast to coast.
Yeah, in fact,
we played touch football and we went and had the car blessed at this church we went to look for a church, remember? Anyway, we'll get to that when we go coast to coast. Let's come back to Assam.
Guys, before we say goodbye to our listeners, leave me with your parting story from Assam that is very special to you.
My favorite place just for beauty when we ate in Assam was that place in Sonitpur, Samaro Ndi's Dhaba, right by the highway, brightly lit in different colors, painted on that bamboo huts on the stilts. And then they had the main restaurant and then they had this side little areas where you had your own individual hut of a different color and 7 to 8 people could eat there. And then they had duck and pork and chicken and fish and lots of tengas. And I think that's where Rocky had the pudi mas also. And then they explained to us that it's on the stilts because first we were trying to figure out why it was called ND's Dhaba. And we had all sorts of funnies in there. I don't know if Rocky remembers what we thought ND's, like come and rest in Nd's Dhaba. And then we found out that the owner was called Nitul Das. So it was ND or Nitul Das.
We have some great pictures there. We have some fantastic.
Yeah. And at that time, if you remember, we were still like always shooting without the tripods. And Rocky kept having fun because every time we jump on the little cane wood path, the connecting area between the huts, the whole camera would shake. He's like, the camera guys are going to kill me. Then he go running up and he jump up and down, shake it again.
Yes. Rox, yours?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then when we had packed up and we were putting our stuff back into the car, I remember the camera guys went running out again because a rhino had just appeared behind the restaurant.
Yes.
And all the village kids ran screaming all over the place and the rhino went right into the middle of the field. And these guys went running back and took the shot of the rhino from that restaurant. And so my story is my favorite story of Assam will always be the wildlife of Assam. I mean, Kaziranga is just one of those diverse hotspots of just, it is incredible. I mean, the flora, the fauna, the kind of life it has is completely unmatched by any other wildlife sanctuary in the world. And that is why I keep going back to Kaziranga. I must have been there like about 15 times. It's like I said, it's one of my favorite states. I love the food, I love the people, and I love Kaziranga. I mean, completely, it is, I would spend all my time in Kaziranga if I had a choice. So it's really great, but no story of Assam is complete without the story of rice. And while it's a humble thing that most people forget. I don't know if you guys remember that sticky black rice, which is called Kola Joha, which was really fantastic. And then there's the kunkuni. The kunkuni is like this small Johar rice, which is it's like highly aromatic. And that is my favorite rice. I mean, apparently this is like an incredible rice because we've eaten it, Mayur and I. It's called Komal Sol. And Komal Sol is rice that you don't have to cook. You just immerse it in water and then you take it out after some time and you eat it. So that used to be, like a staple for armies that are out in the field and they don't want to make fires at night so they can't be spotted. They just put the rice into a glass of water and then take it out and eat it, and it's ready to eat. So Assam is the home of rice. I mean, it's a beautiful rice belt, some incredible food, incredible stories, incredible music. I mean, if you hear the Assamese music of Bhupen Hazarika, and you may not understand what he's singing, but it'll transport you. And to understand why Assam connects so deeply with the human soul, no matter who you are or where you're from, just listen to Bhupen Hazarika and you'll know the connection that Assam offers. So when you get down there and get out of the big city, which is now Guwahati, I mean, I remember getting out of the Guwahati airport for the first time. I'd gone there in 1994, 95. I remember getting out and I was in jungle, thick jungle. And now, 25 years later, when you get out of the Guwahati airport, you're in a city, you're in a big city with a flyover and everything is really, really changed. But that connect is still absolute. And as soon as you start driving out of Guwahati, as soon as you get out of the big city, you are in paradise. So for me, Assam will always be that.
So I have several great memories, but this is one thing that has only happened to me at the Guwahati airport. On my right wrist, I have a joining titanium plate because I had shattered my wrist several years ago, in I think 2009, 10, 11 sometime. So I carry a certificate because, sometimes metal detectors beep and I have to show that I have an X-ray that shows no place asks for it, I always carry it. Only one airport, the security asked me that you're saying that the detector is going off because you have a metal inside your arm. Let me see the medical certificate. And I was like, yaar, ना न्यूयॉर्क एयरपोर्ट पे ना लंदन कहीं नहीं पूछा मुझसे, बस तुमने पूछा है. And of course, one thing I have to say about Guwahati is, guys, and this happened to me each time I went there are two places in the country which have the most stunning landscapes. One is Guwahati, one is Visakhapatnam. Like you can go from this mountaintop to the beach in Visakhapatnam in like a 1-hour drive. That cliff you climb up, we guys did a shot over there as well. Now, Visakhapatnam to a lesser extent, Guwahati is so dirty, man. I mean, there is no reason there should be so many plastic bags and dumps all over here when you're driving. And it breaks my heart because Guwahati, it hits you because it is so much in contrast to the natural beauty. So if anyone can do anything about that and you're listening, clean it up, man. It's one of the most beautiful cities I've been to. And it's a pity that it's so dirty. So yeah. So guys, before we wind up, write into homp2020@gmail.com with your food stories. Subscribe to our newsletter. Become part of the community that will get Rocky and Muir back on the road, because until you can't hit the highway, we will bring the highway to you through this podcast. And once all this insanity is over, let's get these two men back out there doing what they do best. That's traveling, eating, and bringing you some incredibly funny and fun stories from all across this country. So lads, let's get the food courts, shall we?
Okay, boys. So who's going first today?
May I? Arz kiya hai?
Yes.
Assam is winning hearts while taking care of all body parts. Beauty that's easy on the eye. Assam pet bhi bhare, while dil hum kare.
Wow. Lovely. Assam is wonderful for duck, for rice, and of course the incredible pigeon curry. When you come here, the world seems to slow down and time goes slow and you'll never be in a hurry.
Wow.
Baba.
It is the land of the scary Bhoot Jalokia. But I'll come to Assam bar. Because remember, when it comes down to the food, it is the land of the pitika, the tenga, and the khar.
Wow, wow. Too good.
And we didn't even touch upon the khar, by the way. So while we leave you, the khar is this sort of, is one of the only
Astringent. It's an astringent taste. It's made by burning the core of the banana plants, usually, of the banana tree, the stem. They burn it, and then you get the ash. Then you filter it through water, and then you use it in vegetables, and it's really nice and astringent. It dries your mouth out. It also cleanses your palate for before you eat.
Yes, and the word that I was looking for is alkaline. It is also one of the very few alkaline foods that you'd eat. So it is completely brilliant, and khar is everywhere. You know, they burn these long fronds of palm, and they take dried banana leaves and they burn them on these palm fronds, and the ash is used to make khar, and it is just absolutely brilliant. So get down to Assam, eat the food, have lots of fun. It's been great chatting about it. I don't want to end, but I think time is up, so we have to go.
Yes, we should. Our poor producers also need to sleep. It's late at night. And before we go, I'd like to remind all of you once again, whatever city you're in, do make sure no one goes hungry in your city or town. Identify whichever other organizations, whether government or non-government, that are contributing and feeding the hungry. They are migrant labor stuck all across the country. In these times of lockdown, those of us who have the privilege of having full bellies and full refrigerators, let's step up. In fact, News Laundry will be doing a piece and putting together organizations in different cities that are working to get food to those who don't have any. So if you can, in whatever small way, even if it's sponsoring one meal or 2 meals or 10 meals or 1,000 meals, one of our listeners has actually sent me a mail saying she gave 27,000 rupees to their foundation that I had recommended in the last postcard. Thank you so much for that, ma'am. I won't give your name because you might not want to share it, and you've been most generous. So, that's the organization we are working with in Delhi. Find the organization. While we talk about food and travel, let's make sure no one in our cities under our watch starves to death.
Good message, Niku. Absolutely. For all the people who love food, let's just share whatever little we have. Let's put it out there. Let's all get together and sort this out, because this will be over soon. It may not happen on the 3rd of May. It may continue for a little longer, but sooner or later it'll be over. And let's take care of fellow Indians.
With that message, good night, lads. Until we meet again, which state should we take them to next time? Mayur, come on, your call. Are we taking them to the hills or to the ocean?
Let's go down south this time.
We were just down south last episode from Kerala, yeah. How about Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh? You want to do that? That'll be a long episode.
Good idea.
But are we doing one episode? Because now that's separate. That's like a...
No, but when we did it was one state. Because when we did Telangana and Andhra also one state. So I guess we should do it in the order that we did it.
We don't care.
As
about
always,
the
let's be politically incorrect.
Yes, we will do it as the state we visited, which was Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh.
Yes. While we fondly think of Bombay and Bangalore and Madras, we will also head to Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh.
Yes. Good night, lads.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All the News Laundry podcasts are available on Stitcher, iTunes, and any other podcast platform.
Please subscribe to News Laundry. Help us keep news independent. To catch all our podcasts on news, pop culture, current affairs, and sport, visit newslaundry.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.